I'm Lydia. I've been making videos about simple living for several years here. I've lived a minimalist lifestyle for even longer. At the start of this channel, my journey focused mainly on decluttering to a rather extreme level, as I wanted to clear room in my physical space along with my headspace to start anew. Now that I've cleared the path of obstacles and distractions, it's made it possible to uncover the scope of what I really want and not what society tells me to want. I choose to showcase exactly that here on this channel, my minimalist home and simple way of living. A life that is as in tune with nature as possible, a simple life with limited stress that is easy and peaceful. I see myself eventually living in a remote cabin in the woods, but for now, I'm content. I think minimalism and simple living teaches us this, to be happy with the small pleasures of everyday life that we have now. So the projection of my simple life that I share here on this channel is everything I learn about this way of living along the way, so that maybe I can help others looking for a simple way of living too. One that feels like a true way of living, one that is free from agenda. Every year around this time, it's been Christmas, it's been Valentine's Day, it's been my birthday. I'm confronted with my paper clutter. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't have much. Previously, everything I'm about to show you today fit in this. It is now empty because I have been through it, but I'm going to show you all what I've sorted out, to the point that today in this video, all my paper clutter, all of it, it's going. And believe me, if we think about paper, I can see why Marie Kondo considers it a whole section of its own, because within paper, we obviously have letters, cards, certificates, forms, as own documents and things that we might have for running a household. And whilst I think it's pretty well documented that minimalists usually digitize everything, what about if we're talking about what I've been talking about the previous few weeks, and that is that in some areas I prefer to go analog? Well, the one area that I will not be going analog anytime soon is how I keep my paper documents. Just know. But then that moves into tricky territory, because obviously, what about photographs? For many people, we may have many photographs lying around that are paper. So previously, I had a photo album that fit flat in here with just 20 photographs in. I'm getting rid of them. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody has to do that. I can understand people wanting to keep photographs, but I'm going to tell you why and what I'm getting rid of, and show you the outcome of what I actually keep in this video, and also why. But for the most part, we're getting rid of all my paper. So let me get the things to show you. Now, bearing in mind what people have to keep from certain countries to do with legalities is very different. Here, where I'm from, we kind of have this thing with our certificates where, because they are embossed and watermarked and semi-engraved, we have to keep them, and it's not the issuing authorities that issue them to your potential employer, like in some countries, like I know some of you have said is the case in America. In the UK, most of us have to keep them. So that was one area that I could not get rid of. But let's just say I am getting rid of everything else. This is a stack of paperwork that I went through that I'll get to in a minute. And let's just say, because I'm trying to downsize from the A4 to the A5, then every little bit counts. So let me show you some other stuff that I am getting rid of today. So previously, this A5, I don't even know if we can call it that. It might even be actual A6, the photographs inside it, did actually fit flat inside my A4 file with all my other paperwork. But I've just decided that I don't want it. And I'll tell you all why. It's not because I am totally devoid of humanity, but this is something that I question everybody to question if you're really wondering whether you should keep photographs or not as a part of your larger paper bundle. First of all, do you ever actually take them out and look at them? Second of all, do you actually like having photos on your wall? Because I used to, which is why I kept them. And I think part of me even kept these thinking maybe one day when I get my cabin in the woods, will I have a few photographs out? And the more and more I've thought about this, and believe me, it's not been a quick decision, it's gone on for a couple of years, I realised that every time I try to have a photograph out on the wall, I actually don't like it. And I think that comes down to how we all might think about our past or our moments in life. And I've just at this point in my life, and I can't see it changing, really began to think, because it hasn't changed for some time, that I don't really want to be reminded of a past life, because even though all our memories all make up part of our lives, I personally truly believe that we slowly do become different people throughout our life. And I just can't even identify with those photographs anymore of me from a past life. It doesn't seem part of who I am anymore. And therefore, do I really need to hang on to it? So what I previously did was I kept 20 of my favourite photographs of people that I care about and love. But now I would say less than that. I would really rather only keep one actual photograph of all the people that I've ever loved. And believe me, maybe that's sad, but it's less than 20. It's less than 20 people. So I decided I would rather just keep one tiny photograph of all the people that I've ever loved, just in case, which I know we're not supposed to say as minimalist, but there is in recent months, that just in case that supposing society did collapse and we didn't have access to all our digital stuff, then I would at least like to have one photograph of each person or creature that I've ever cared about. But that is not a photo album's worth of stuff. So this photo album, because it was nicely organised with little sort of pre-cards, but yeah, it doesn't need to all be there anymore. I don't need it anymore. It is a nicely little organised linen photo album, but I don't need it. So I'm going to give it to my mum for Mother's Day, because my mum, unlike me, is a little bit of a collector. She's not a hoarder, but she's definitely trying to downsize to move, but she does keep a few things more than myself. I know that some of you said you would be very interested to see that in the future, and I might possibly take you and show you my mum's house in France when she's maybe got it already, or even the process of that. We'll see. But for now, we're getting rid of that, and we're getting rid of all this other paperwork. So photographs are obviously not the only thing to consider, but I think they're a very big thing, because some people might even consider them sentimental items, so they kind of cross paths. Then another thing that I think is quite interesting is that in the Marie Kondo or KonMari technique, she separates books, although technically they are paper, but she considers them such a big area, they're separate. Thank goodness for a lot of people, because a lot of people want their books not in the same category as the paper. That's why it's, wow. I suppose if you really didn't want a lot of stuff, you definitely have to go for the Kindle or just borrowing things. Now, the next area that might be a bit tricky for people, and it was definitely tricky for me, and I even need my notes to remind me, is being a writer, an academic writer and creative writer. A few of you asked about that in the last video. I have a master's in philosophy and I coach academic writing as well as marking it. So I am, you could say, really quite attached to writing and what it means. And an area that's been very difficult for me as a minimalist is wanting to keep letters. But this is a tip that I have for everybody. I keep what I consider to be the best letter I've ever received from anyone. So instead of keeping all their letters, which maybe some people have to do if there is something that they've really loved in their life, getting handwritten letters from somebody, handwritten, we'll get onto that. But for the most part, I keep one letter from every person that I've ever cared about. So currently I have a handwritten letter from my nana, a handwritten letter from my mum, a recipe from my nana for sweet chili jelly, which I can see myself one day making lots of in our cabin in the woods and having with all kinds of different homegrown vegetables. So that's 3 paper documents definitely keeping, along with about 4 photographs. I'll get to that in a minute. Letter writing and keeping of letters has not been an easy one. And I think, because this goes into with the digital versus analog debate that I've been discussing in recent weeks, I think as a writer, the reason I find handwriting very personal is there's a whole field even of criminology and analysis where people analyse, and even in psychology, people analyse people's handwriting because they truly believe it says something about who they are as people. And if we all forget how to handwrite because of all the digital stuff that is now going on, all the devices that we have, I think a part of our humanity will really be lost. So what I actually encourage, even as a minimalist, is that we all send at least one handwritten letter a year. When my nana was still with us, I did that every month. I wrote my nana a handwritten letter, and when she could, she would send one back, and it's something that I really enjoyed. And even when I was at university, I did a project in philosophy where sneakily earlier in the year I got everybody's home addresses and I sent every one of my classmates a handwritten letter, and they all said what a pleasant and lovely surprise it was, because they'd not had a handwritten letter that wasn't a bill, which I suppose technically is typed up, so they'd not had a letter of any kind other than a bill for years. And I felt like that was a very sad thing. And even let's talk about if you are an academic or you are a creative. I kept and hung on to my final piece that I did for my bachelor's degree. I kept it for years because it was like a book. And anyway, some of you may remember at the beginning of this channel, I decided to finally give it away, and I actually gave it back to the university because the university tried to keep it when I left because it was the highest grade that anybody had ever got for that field. So they tried to keep it as an example of the best work they'd ever had in the university and put it in the university's library. And I was like, well, it's my piece of work though that I've spent 3 years working on, so I really want to keep it. And it was very difficult. So they said, well, can we have a copy at least? I said, of course. So I gave them a copy. But then years later, I realised that although I was proud of that piece of work, I had literally not looked at it for 10 years. So I gave it back to the university and they've still kept it. I, on the other hand, have a digital copy and it is about 300 pages long. It is a true thickness of a real book. It's hardback. It took up a lot of space. I just hadn't looked at it. I gifted it back. So I really do consider people, if you're really trying to get rid of paper, whether you do really go back and look at it. If you do, fair enough. What I'm finding with photographs lately is that because we have a projector and I have sort of my Amazon photos on there, I actually get more use of seeing my photos digitally now than I do in physical form. And unlike it being an object that somebody has actually given you, it really is just a snapshot in time on a piece of paper. And although you might have had that piece of paper since the time, I don't think it's much of a connection as having an actual object from a person. To me, it is just a photograph. And as long as you've done a good scanned version on your phone, on your iPad, I think the digital version is just as good, especially for me, because we sometimes leave our projector running in the background and we get to see all these snapshots all uploaded in one place all the time. And yet we don't have the clutter on our walls of picture frames because I personally, and I know that everybody's different, not everybody finds picture frames to be clutter, but I do. I like the white walls in this building in particular because it's got high buildings around it and it's a bit darker. And I like my walls to be bare so that I can project onto it. And we're often changing, the room around. So we like all the walls to be bare. So you may all now be wondering, well, what did I actually keep? That is now A5. That is all the paperwork that I have kept. Luckily, they're folding in on themselves so I can show you a bit. It is all my certificates. It is my master's degree, my bachelor's degree, believe it or not, a horse riding instructing certificate because I am a qualified horse riding instructor, my birth certificate, like actual documents like that you might need, and literally, I'm going to show you all this. In here, I have a tiny little wallet that now has about 4 photographs of the main prolific figures in my life that I have loved. Some people come and go, but some people will always be there. 4 photographs, one of each of them. A letter from my nana, a letter from my mum, a letter from my uncle Lawrence, who is an artist, or he was, and he has work in the Tate Gallery, and he wrote me a beautiful letter about the book that I did for my degree and gave me his feedback on it, and my nana's sweet chilli recipe. That is all we have. That is all the paperwork I own in the world. And you may be wondering, well, why do I have this? And that is because now I've gone back to taking notes and organising in this file. I like the idea that my paperwork, anything that's paper that I own, could live together like that. So that is just a writing pad inside there, but that is my actual paperwork, nice and neatly together, and I can keep my pen in there if I want, although there's technically a pen holder in there as well. But I think it's nice and organised. I like it. And the reason I kept this out to show you all is I am going to be doing something quite soon with my sentimental objects, which I kind of briefly mentioned. So I don't have much, but they're all in here. To give you a hint, there's a little badge that I was previously going to get rid of, then I changed my mind about because I've got a better idea of what I would like to do with some of these sentimental objects. But they are not big. That is my sentimental items limit. One tiny little pouch, which is smaller than the palm of my hand, but I am going to do something with them because this year for me is a year about letting go. For anybody who doesn't know, it's the start of the lunar year, the past couple of days, and it has just been my birthday, and that's when I consider it to be the new year for me personally. I like to go into the new year with no paper clutter. I feel lighter. I feel like I don't have things on my mind. I feel like I'm not clinging on to the past. Some things you might want to keep, but for the most part, sometimes it feels like clinging to me and I don't want to do that. I'm going into this new phase of life. We're doing van life, we're traveling, we're looking for our forever home. I don't want to take any of this stuff from my old life with me. I hope you found this interesting, but there's one last thing to do. That is obviously being gifted to my mum. I might see if she wants that as well. But let's just have a look at all the paper that has gone. Are you ready? Gone. One thing that I wanted to tell you all really quickly before I do go is I got distracted because I saw one thing on the floor that got mixed up that is supposed to go in the little plastic wallet. Let me show you all really quick. I forgot that along with the recipe from my nana, I'm keeping one little picture that my mum drew me when I was little because I was obsessed with the My Little Ponies. So she used to send me one of them every week while she was at uni and my nana was looking after me. So, because my mum was a mature student at uni, sort of in her mid-20s. So she decided she wanted to go to university later in life to become an interior designer. Yeah, she sent me a little picture every week. So I decided to keep one of them. So that is going in the little plastic wallet in there, but everything else is going. Anyway, distractions over. One thing that I thought I'm going to try next week is for a couple of weeks we are keeping these extra videos on Sunday at 11 AM my time. Previously I've been trying Wednesdays at 4 PM my time, but since 40% of you that watch my channel are from the States and I realise you're up a little bit later, and in fact it's saying that a lot of you are up a bit later, I'm thinking actually I'm going to try a bit later. We're going to try Wednesdays at 10 PM, which I think is New York time, 5 PM, I think Los Angeles time, it's like 2 PM. What is it in Australia? Fiona, if you're watching, if it's 10 PM here, is it 10 AM in Australia? Anyway, I'm trying to work out what the best time is, that most of my audience is online. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to try Wednesdays at 10 PM my time for a while and Sundays at 11 AM. And YouTube thinks that you would like to watch this video here next, or possibly you might quite like this video and decide to subscribe by clicking the subscribe button here. Thank you for watching. Bye.